You like eggs?
I like eggs.
I like eggs. I think they're delicious. I can eat 3, 4 eggs every morning for breakfast if I could. How about you?
I'll take them any way that you give them to me. I
Oh,
love eggs, and eggs are they're kind of one of my only food groups that I can eat on a regular basis. I have some tummy troubles, and
yeah.
but eggs are always they're always there for me.
And they're healthy AF.
Hmm.
They really are. And they're awesome. But here's the cool thing now. You know what you can do with eggs now? You can buy Bitcoin. You can buy a car. Or you can buy a dozen eggs. One of
Yeah.
the two. So but we're going to talk about that here because there's some weird shit going on with the eggs. And is it related to bird flu? And why is that making our egg prices so high? And why? We're going to get into that. So, welcome aboard to the Rude Barn podcast. Let's get into this. Man, eggs. Eggs are delightful. Love them. I love them scrambled. I love them fried. I love them in omelettas. I love to make things like, I don't know, cookies, eggs. Eggs.
I love them in
I love to
bread. I
make
love them
eggs
in
with eggs.
cookies. I love them in cake. I love my eggs on top of my eggs.
Yeah. Can I have some eggs with a side of eggs?
I love boiled eggs. I love deviled eggs. I
I love
love
fried eggs. I
quiche. I love
love shrimp
quiche.
eggs. I love rare.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've been hearing, it's actually started, the buzz started more than a year ago that egg prices were going up. They're going up. They're going up. And people were up in arms.
Yeah.
Yeah. But why?
Yeah.
And this was before the bird flu was even mentioned.
Yeah.
Or before the avian flu was to blame for egg prices going up.
Some.
Yeah, they were just going up. And I thought, okay, well, it's part of inflation. Everything's going up, you know what I mean? So why not eggs go up? And I think that, I read some stories how egg farms, they were competing. And they'd raise and then they'd drop, and then they raise and then they drop. And industry was, they were like, well, crap, you know what I mean? They still wanted the quality of eggs they were getting,
right,
for the price that they were paying, right?
And
as it went up and up and up, they're having to pay more, and then that takes them off the shelf, for the regular consumer. So
a little supply and demand.
A little supply and demand thing, but it seems like there's a bigger question, especially what we're hearing now.
Right. And it's like, okay, so I remember not too terribly long ago, wish I had some harp music to play in the background, but I remember not too long ago, you can go into the store and get the market and go get a dozen eggs for like $1, 99 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they hung around about $1.50-ish, give or take. And it's not too bad. That's like 10 cents an egg. Very affordable, reasonable. You can get a bunch. I used to get the 5 dozen box thing.
Oh, yeah.
And save some money, pay like, $6, $8, something like that for that. And
well, you could get your egg haul at the Costco too, right?
Yeah. Well, that's where I've been getting them, And it's been a great way of doing it. And then, I've recently gone in since our illustrious former commander-in-chief, I hate to say president, anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so rude. Anyway, yes, I am. It's called the Rude Barn podcast. So, where everything was starting to go out of control. Prices were going up on everything: milk, and eggs, and cheese, and butter, and clothing and furniture. Everything that had to be delivered. Gas prices were going up. Everything followed because you got to deliver everything by truck and train, usually. Mm-hmm. So all of that went an airplane. Oh, I don't want to forget the birds in the sky. And everything was going up. So we just kind of like, oh, shit, yeah, price that. Then all of a sudden it was like $2 a dozen, then $3. Then you're looking at like, oh my God, $4 a dozen. Well, guess what? It was the other day, just like a week ago. $6 freaking a dozen for eggs, dude. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and I buy
That's
them
not Costco. That's just your regular grocery store.
Yeah, regular grocery store. I buy them in like an 18 pack. And I'll take like half of them and I'll boil them, and then the other half we just kind of go through the week, right?
Sure.
But still, that's $6 compared to what, 3 years ago, or before COVID. You're
three dozen worth of
paying
eggs.
$1.99. Yeah.
And it's not just that. People need to understand. It's not just the eggs, the price. It's everything else. So when eggs go up 3 times the amount, when bread, when cheese, when meat, when beef, chicken, anything else, anything, you name it. Top ramen. I don't care. But when it all goes up, and you're paying 50 cents, $1, $2 more for the same item that you paid a lot less for before, now all of a sudden your $80 grocery bill is $150.
Right. More. Yeah, and anything that eggs go into that you're buying at the grocery store, you know what I mean? All that's going up. So, it's that kind of trickle down effect. And I think that, one of the things that bothers me is I try not to.
One of many things, of course.
Yeah. I try not to focus too hard on the inflation because it's there. It's like bitching over the wind. You know what I mean? It's gonna blow anyway. So it's like, just deal with it, right? Yeah. And so, I've kind of got my bitching over inflation out. But when we see things like this, that are the things that the little luxuries that we enjoy, that never costs an arm and a leg. Now, when you're like, do I buy eggs or do I buy orange juice?
Right.
Because you used to be able to get both of them for under $6. Yeah. Now you kind of got to make a choice.
Now it's like $10 for the two, or $12 for both of them.
Yeah, and it's like the avocado prices. You know what I mean? I mean,
avocados from Mexico.
Like you can't get them for under.
Yeah. Well, we'll just import them all. We'll just import everything else that is like, which is interesting because the first video we're going to show is what is her title? Agricultural Secretary.
Yes.
Secretary Rollins. And she's going to speak about the avian flu and rising egg prices and see if there's a correlation, which there is. And then the question, as you can see on the crawler across the bottom of the Chiron, if you will, as we talk about, is it preventable? Was it manufactured? Is this all artificial, or is this whole egg price increase and avian bird flu thing, are they related? Well, if you have any synapses firing in your brain, you'd at least say, you know what? Sure seems like there's some correlation there. Well, here we go. So here's Secretary Collins, Ag Secretary, talking about this, and let's hear what she has to say.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you all so much. Really great to be here to get to talk about this. Clearly, one of the key issues facing America today are the egg prices, and the president has made it one of his priorities from minute one that we bring those prices down for consumers while protecting America's farmers. And very quickly, you can see here this chart. The prices of eggs under Biden
you see that chart?
Skyrocketed. Under Trump went down a little bit. Obama went up a little bit.
There we go.
It's more than just the avian flu, but certainly that has been the driver. So just this morning, I'm going to hand this back on. So just this morning, we announced the plan to, first of all, attack the avian flu and how we pull it back out of our poultry producers. But secondly, how we bring the cost of eggs down. So that plan has 5 parts. The first part.
Well, first of all, and we're going to show you another video that talks about that, about how we can bring the price of eggs down and chickens in general. And one of them is, let's stop slaughtering the whole herd. Herd's right for chickens, right? Correct.
Yeah, I don't know.
The whole
flock?
herd.
I don't know. There's flock seagulls. Seagulls is
something like that. It's a flock of seagulls and a herd of chickens. When one or two or few birds happen to have this illness, and instead of quarantining them, they're just slaughtering the whole freaking farm. What if we did that with like COVID or whatever you want to, whatever disease you want? oh, so and so just there were like 14 people that have died with COVID, and we're gonna slaughter the whole population within a certain radius around them.
Yeah, within like a 6-mile radius. Yeah.
Does that sound logical? Does that sound? But if they're only chickens, we can make more.
You know, and I'm not sure why those protocols are in place. Don't you quarantine just a few? Yeah. Yeah, it is the farm's protocol, but I think, and you know, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think it's a mandate put down by the Department of Agriculture or the FDA or something that mandates these farmers to slaughter a certain amount or whatever if one or two get sick. So it is a mandate that is put on them that they have to do it. Which
but why? Why did they put that protocol in place?
Yeah, that it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and so that's the question we ask is like, okay, I don't care if it's a protocol, if it's a mandate, whatever that they want to put in place for this. Where's the science behind that? Is it the proper thing to do? Is just willy-nilly, a dozen birds happen to come down with this, they happen to be in a certain area or whatever, you can find it, randomly test a few others in different areas of it. Anybody that doesn't test positive, put them over here, they're out of the way, they're good to go, and test them for however long, a couple more days, a week or two or whatever, make sure they're okay, instead of just mass slaughtering our freaking chickens.
Yeah,
you think that's why egg prices went up, because we have a hell of a lot fewer chickens going on, and that's just one farm, for example?
Well, and it's stupid protocols like that.
Yeah.
Which, again, like I said, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it just seems, and I don't want to sound like uneducated about it, because it's hard stuff to find. What in the time that we had, but at the same time, it just, I mean, our motto is to question everything. So Here you go. Here's the questions. And is it a question of, and this is a question for you, Barn, what do you think? Is this a question of creating chaos to look like the hero, or creating chaos to make somebody else look bad? Or creating chaos to then come in like a superhero with a
solution,
with a big solution. Yeah, that's
a problem you created. That's like the government never, ever does. Ever.
It might cost taxpayer dollars, but you know what? It's going to be a good thing. It's going to be a good thing.
Who owns these farms that the taxpayer dollars will be bailing out, for example? They slaughter the millions of chickens in each barn.
Yeah, that's another question. Yeah.
Well, you have to ask. I mean, follow the money is one of the other mottos we like to to use around here. Follow the effing dollars. Who's getting paid? Who's benefiting from it?
Well, and it's sad because it's more and more and more. You see these farmers, they're I mean, for lack of better words, they're taking it in the rear. You know what I mean? They don't have the protections, especially these independent farmers and organic farmers and free range farmers. They don't have the protections that I think should be in place for the freaking, the amount of food that they're providing for the whole country, Yeah.
Well, okay. So to answer the questions you asked, or at least ask more questions, because I don't necessarily have the answers at all. Not gonna pretend I do, but it sure makes me wonder why the protocol to mass slaughter all of the chickens when just a few or whatever the number is are testing positive for this. Does the avian flu pass into the embryo or the egg and the everything else? Do they test that? If it does, fine, totally get it. Okay, but let's lift and separate the egg-laying chickens that are, or even the chickens that give us our delicious tenders and nuggies. Separate them from the rest of the group and do the testing. Is it there? Because I have to wonder, Are they trying to keep things artificially high so that Americans continue? And who are they? To keep Americans kind of in this panic and poverty. I mean, rich people don't have to worry about it. People who make decent money don't have to worry about it. But we should all be complaining, because if we really cared about the people who weren't making a whole lot of money, who are the lower income people, if we really truly cared, wouldn't we care about this to say, eggs are kind of a staple? Eggs, milk, bread, cheese, vegetables, fruits, blah, blah, blah. Did we not have this worked out so that we're not charging those people? And in effect, people who are on welfare and food stamps, EBT, whatever, we're paying for them to pay for the higher eggs, and they're getting less out of it as well. So how compassionate are you really being if you don't give a rat's about the egg prices going up because they're using these protocols?
Well, so, you bring up a really good point, because it feels like that. It feels like as soon as the buzz and the fear about one thing is subsided, then here comes something else to keep us in that scare mode, to where we just comply. Yeah. And those are the things. It's like when they have us, effectively by the balls, by the chicken balls,
by the nuggets,
by the nuggets,
by the little nuggies.
Then what can we do? I'm glad it got to the agricultural secretary, and she came out and did something. And I have to say, this is one thing I like about this new administration, is that when they hear about something, they get on it. Right now.
Yeah. Like white on rice, whatever the hell that means.
And I like that. I like that about Trump and his administration and his appointees, because that's the kind of person he is. He wants an answer now. Get on it. And there's no there's no sitting on our hands. There's no thinking about it, trying. No, there's fucking doing.
Yeah, why are we letting this continue on, where our prices for basics keep going up and up and up, and nobody seems to give a rat's ass about it? And now we finally have people who are saying, you know what, we're actually going to try to do things for the people. Now they're being sabotaged every step of the way, because heaven forbid Trump does anything good, because then they would realize they don't have a shot in hell of remaining in power. And that's their big thing. People have got to say, okay, $6, it's unacceptable. $4 a dozen, unacceptable. It should be $2 or under a dozen. It really should be back. I would love to see 99-cent dozen eggs again.
Well, and I hate to say it,
and
once they get, we'll go a little bit further on in this video, and she says that we're talking to other countries about importing some eggs, and that's great and everything, but I mean,
well, let's import our oil too, like good old Joey boy did, where he cut off our own.
The problem is
manufacturing it.
There's so many chickens that have been slaughtered because of this. It's really hard to make up those differences in a short amount of time. And I think that that's the only reason why they want to import, which I think is ridiculous, obviously. But I mean, is it a boycott? Do we not buy eggs? Right. I mean, to send that message, do we not buy eggs for a week? 2 weeks.
Well, and then what happens to the eggs? Do they go bad sooner because we've not purchased them, and so they're backing up in the warehouses and in the farms that we can't ship them out because nobody's demanding? I mean, so there's that side of it as well.
Like, fuck off.
So no, there's a lot of questions. I don't have the answers. I can't answer those questions that you asked without asking more.
Well, and you're right.
Where'd your sweatshirt go, dude? What happened?
Gone.
That's right. We had to pause it so Rude could take his sweatshirt off, because he was burning up. He's just getting hot under the collar with this issue.
This issue just sets me aflame.
Fuego.
But and so let's roll the tape and hear a little bit more what she has to say.
Yeah. But it just kind of goes to show you that this is the shit that's actually been going on, and this is why we're paying so much for freaking eggs. Here we go.
Is a biosecurity part, and what that means is that how do we lock our poultry barns down? How do we ensure that our egg-laying chickens aren't getting this disease? Mostly
Would that be a
it comes from
quarantine?
wild fowl that fly over or get into the barns. So USDA will be producing at no charge an audit to every single egg farmer in this country, and then we will help them secure their barns. Of 150 pilot projects on this exact project, only one has gotten the avian flu since the USDA came in and helped lock those barn downs. That's first. Secondly, we're going to work to move much more quickly on repopulating the 160 million birds that have been culled in just the last few months. So what do we need to do to...
I think when she says cold, I think she means slaughtered.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
160 million.
160. That's insanity, dude. It's insane. It's crazy. It's loco. It's nuts.
Get regulations out of the way to help indemnify these poultry producers to start repopulating much more quickly than we've been doing.
We shouldn't have to do that either.
That is ensuring that the rules that have been layered on our producers, our egg producers, over the last really 4 years, that we begin to peel those back. That will allow.
What happened the last 4 years?
Yeah, and those are those are some of the things that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Peel those stupid regulations that are put in place about killing a whole damn flock when one bird gets the damn flu, right?
Yeah. Well, it's two birds, but anyway, yeah. We get the point. Yeah.
Our costs to come down. That's a little bit more long term, but really important. There are some rules in play that are costing the eggs to go up without the avian flu as part of it.
But that's a big part of it, apparently.
Import eggs in the short term. This is just on the cost piece.
No,
we're already in discussions. There's been, if you dig around, you'll kind of figure out which countries, but we're talking to 3 or 4 countries right now about getting between 70 and 100 million eggs into the country in the next month or two, which of course will help with supply and demand. And then the final, more long term, is putting significant funds into vaccine and therapeutic research. Our egg layers and our broilers, our poultry industry.
That always gives me pause.
So me too, and we can end her video there. Go ahead. I think we have the same thought.
Yeah. She does talk about a little bit farther along in this that I should say further along in this video that they don't want to do anything that which you think would have been the logical thing that we would have done back in 2020 and 2021. Mm-hmm. Make sure the vaccines are freaking safe and that they're not going to affect the health of the chickens and the not so health of the chickens that gets passed to humans while we eat them. And that's why you got to cook them. But does cooking these vaccinated birds, does that get rid of any of the vaccines that are in there? You know what I'm saying? There's just, you see where I'm going with this.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of been, I guess one of my biggest gripes with chickens in general is, all the hormones that they're putting in them.
Yeah.
And so
you got to produce bigger chickens with bigger breasts and bigger nuggets, and
And so, and I know, I mean, it's been documented that, that those hormones are transferring over to, the consumer, and which is something that I don't like. Now,
thanks FDA for monitoring that. And USDA, you're freaking useless sometimes.
Well, I mean, you just look at it like you start vaccinating birds, then, it gets into their bloodstream, their system, their meat, and then we consume it. We're going to get some of it.
And then when they poop, that gets into the fertilizer, and then that gets into your lettuce and your vegetables and your fruit trees and everything else. I mean, because they use that as fertilizer for, they use the waste of animals for fertilizer, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So and it goes exactly your point. It goes on down the line. And if and is this a good thing to do? It's like the pesticides that we're going to kill the aphids and the mosquitoes and everything else, all these other bugs that destroy our crops and things like that. But we're ingesting those pesticides, and then was it Bill Gates or somebody like that has this product called Appeal. Appeal is something that they spray on your fruits and vegetables to make them look great and last longer in the store.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the kicker, right up the ass, is you can't wash that shit off when you get it home.
Yeah.
What is in that appeal that is so, wait for it, appealing?
Appealing.
Everybody did. Okay. All right. You knew it was going. Anyway. But why is that something that I don't want that shit on my food. I would rather buy my vegetables from the local farmer's market when you can, but that's usually in the summertime. And so, I mean, I don't see farmer markets during the winter, during the early spring and fall very much. It's usually early fall, late spring, throughout the summer. That's about it.
No, we used to do food shares, and we'd be in those programs too, where we would get what they had in season. Right. So, during the winter it was like potatoes and canned food. You know what I mean? But in the summer it was great. You get fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, this and that. You know what I mean?
That from down south and Central America, South America, everywhere else.
And that was fine. That was great. And we go to the local farmers markets, but you don't get that in the winter,
No, not at all. So here's another quick little video that talks about this, and then we'll get into the one where he and Dr. Eric Berg, who I think has an awesome podcast about anything and everything. And now he just happened to do one recently, last few days, about this egg deal. But listen to this one first. I haven't heard it, so I'm not sure.
When it comes to eggs and high prices, we are all on the same boat. Whether you're buying for your family or buying like Vernon Hansen.
And we're using about 8,000 eggs a week.
Who needs eggs for his restaurant gourmandise.
No eggs, there are almost no desserts.
Rising egg prices have caused Hansen plenty of stress.
From July, we're about 50% increase. So from 95 a case to about 135 a case.
But he's not charging his customers more.
We've just decided to sit on our prices as they are, just for the sake of building that trust and loyalty and consistency with.
There's not enough people like this guy
I
who
agree.
are not passing that expense on to the consumer, or at least he's saying it.
Yeah, I saw a news story yesterday, and they were talking to a manager at a restaurant, like one of those bougie little brunch and breakfast joints that they're scattered around downtown. And she said that they're paying $4,000 a shipment for their eggs. A shipment, and that could be weekly, probably. I'm guessing
it's like a shipload of more cost.
Yeah. And what they're doing is now, and they've raised anything with eggs on it on their menu by at least $2. And they've actually put that on the menu because of egg shortage. We are charging $2 more now. I don't agree with that. This guy, I believe he's doing it the right way, and it might be hurting his pocketbook a little bit, but you keep that loyalty. And you keep your customers coming in. You're going to make out in the end.
Yeah. And I think there's a balance. I think there's, hey, look, maybe let's split the difference. We'll take it in the shorts a little. We'll charge you a little. I'm not going to charge you the full amount and then some, because $2 seems like a lot, even for the amount when you break it down per egg that might be in that particular dish. And yes, you got to add your profit. You got to make sure that all of that's covered. But I think there's a happy medium. Maybe I don't necessarily. I mean, God bless this guy for taking it in his shorts for us. He's up on that cross. I'm just kidding. But he's taking it in the shorts a little for us, and I think that's very admirable. But I also don't think it's realistic across the board either. And I think that maybe he's like, okay, it cost me $1 more to make a dish that's full of eggs. We're going to charge you 50 cents more, and then we split the difference or something. I think would be reasonable, and I think most people would. But when you start charging $2 or $3 more, it seems like you're not only covering the cost of that dish, but you're also covering the cost of a couple other plates. Mm-hmm. And it seems a little greedy based on the fact that they're using that as an excuse. Maybe, and I could be wrong.
Well, another problem is the inflation, and like you said, this isn't a long-term model, and it can't be sustainable forever for his business. So there's going to be incremental increases, and that's, I think that's how it has to be done. But to just like slap your consumers in the face with it, you know what I mean? Your end consumer, like this guy, slap them in the face with it right off the bat is, I think that's harsh. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah,
he's doing
and
it
this,
the right
and
way.
this guy's maybe doing it right, but maybe, how long can he sustain doing that without saying, okay, I got to cut somewhere else?
We're losing money now. Yeah.
Let's listen to the rest of this, and then we'll jump to that last video.
with our customers.
But with the shrinking supply of eggs in the U.S. due to the bird flu, prices are
Shrinking
only going
supply.
one way.
I know
Got a
the
little
USDA
fear-mongery.
just put out a report a few weeks ago saying that they expected the egg prices to increase by 20% in the next month. So they are expecting those prices to increase more before we start to see them decrease, unfortunately.
When it comes to eggs,
Well, that'll be because of all the imports that we're bringing in. Because, hey, we can't supply our own people with our own manufacturing, keeping our own farmers in business. Let's just... Does that sound familiar, like oil? Anyway, does it? A little bit?
Well, the problem is, though, too, is I can see it as a short-term solution. Obviously, it can't be a long-term
Band-Aid.
solution, especially because of the regulations or non-regulations that those other countries may or may not have.
Yeah.
If their regulations are as tight as ours, great. But
what
I
if they
can't
aren't?
imagine that they are.
Hey, what if they don't have like basic regulations? Like, hey, let's not sell eggs that have been sitting in the warehouse
Shit.
in freaking Guatemala for the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month in the heat because they don't refrigerate the warehouses as well as we. I mean, you don't know. So what are we getting when we get these? Oh well, our USDA inspectors will make sure that. Will they, or are they importing so many you can only just spot check here and there?
That's all you can do. You can't fucking check them all, dude. That's
Right.
millions and millions and millions of eggs.
Yeah,
You can't
exactly.
fucking spot check them all.
So in order to kind of show what we're talking about, this backs up, and I had a buddy of mine who we'll have on the show for another podcast, and we've had him on before, talk about this and say, hey, what do you think of this? And he goes, yeah, pretty much it looks spot on from everything I know. And he's kind of in the know in the government circles. And so he kind of said, yeah, this is kind of spot on to what's happening, and it kind of confirms everything we're talking about. Instead of the, quarantining the few chickens, they slaughter the whole mess. Let's listen to what they're talking about here, because this kind of hits home, and then we'll end this video and go on to the next one. But this really kind of brings home what's going on.
Is very close to an exact replay of what happened with COVID.
Egg prices
talked about
are
that.
not something that is random. It's something else. And you have to follow the money. Today, we're going to talk about what's really behind the scarcity of eggs, the price. I'm interviewing Clayton Baker, MD, doctor of internal medicine for over 25 years. Doc, it's a pleasure to meet you. Now, you have some amazing insights to this bird flu, which is a bit of a deja vu of a playbook that I think just happened recently. I wanted to bring you on because maybe you can kind of give us the simple version of what
I gotta speed this up.
potentially could be going on. As far as, could this be something that is accidental or maybe manufactured?
Yes, well, thanks for having me very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to speak, and thanks for taking the time to read my article. If we just use basic pattern recognition skills, we can see that what is going on now with bird flu is very close to an exact replay of what happened with COVID. What we see
There you
is a
go.
several-step process by which people intentionally are creating fear and creating a pandemic or attempting to create a pandemic in order to obtain some kind of control over us. This is clearly what happened with COVID, as even the CIA has admitted now that the virus came out of the lab in Wuhan, that it was an engineered virus. Around 2012 or somewhere thereabouts, was found in a cave of bats in China and was brought to the lab and was manipulated for several years to essentially weaponize it. Late in 2019, that virus was released. Whether it was intentional or unintentional remains unclear, but it definitely came out of the lab. They allowed the World Military Games, which is an Olympic type event, to take place in Wuhan, China, of all places. Brought all kinds of people from all over the world, allowed it to spread, and then by early 2020 it was declared to be this pandemic. We had all of these civil rights violations, locking us down, not allowing us to earn a living in the name of protecting us from this virus. They have a countermeasure, and the countermeasure is to develop these vaccines. They could compel us, they could kind of coerce us into taking these highly profitable and turns out quite toxic vaccines.
Because they fear-mongered us into believing that we were going to die if we didn't take their little vaccine, right? Interesting.
Yeah.
For what reason? Because they would make a lot of money, and because they would exert
Follow
control
the money
over us to continue to take these vaccines in the future. So now let's fast forward to what's happening right now with the bird flu. There are multiple labs that have taken a previously naturally occurring H5N1 bird flu. They've been manipulating it in the lab, doing gain of function, which means trying to make it more transmissible and more.
Why are we allowing that gain of function research to continue? And they put this shit out, and it always mysteriously leaks out of the lab and gets into the fucking environment and into our poultry and into the population and into everywhere else. These people need to be imprisoned for doing this shit.
Well, and I think this really kind of sums this up is and this is the answer that I was going to give you to the question that we had offline. What's the end game here? It even says on our scroller. It's manufactured chaos, and the end game is control, because if you control the food, you control the people, and and you're always going to have that lurking or looming over our heads.
Yeah, this is criminal. This is
it's like Dr. Evil.
Crimes against humanity is what this is.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, let's listen a little bit more, because this is where he goes into what they're doing and how they're dealing with this when they do test these birds.
More virulent. And in fact, they're very aggressively trying to get it to jump species, which is, there's no good reason to do this. Two of the prominent labs in the United States that are doing this are the Southeast Poultry Research Laboratory, which is owned and operated by our own USDA, is doing this crazy research in Athens, Georgia, and it's almost certain that this is the location by which the current circulating clade, as they call it, of this virus leaked out of. Now, whether it leaked out intentionally or unintentionally, I don't know, but we're pretty confident that's where it came from. And Peter McCulloch and Nick Hulsher and some other people have done some incredible work to trace this, incredible detective work to trace this down. They've published it, and no one's even bothered to try and refute it. Of course, our FDA is now claiming that they're doing all they can to contain this, when in fact, they almost certainly leaked the virus out. I don't know whether it was intentional or not. The other lab, and there's multiple labs that do this type of gain-of-function research on bird flu that's really implicated in this, is at the University of Wisconsin Veterinary School. There's a guy, a Japanese national by the name of Yoshihiro Kawaoka. He's been there for many years, funded by all kinds of sources. He's funded by NIH. He's funded by Gates Foundation.
Of course.
There's all kinds of just really ill-advised stuff. President Obama, back in 2014, put a temporary ban on gain-of-function research in the United States. Some of the people that blew the...
As much as I can't stand Obama, he actually did a lot of decent things in addition to some of the crap that he did. That is one of them. And then deporting a lot of the immigrants that came in. He deported more immigrants than Trump did during his administration, by the way, if people didn't understand that or realize that. So when the Democrats complain about that, it's like, well, wait a minute, why don't you look at your own guy? He did that. But at least we'll show. I'll give credit to Obama for doing this and trying to stop it. And it's a shame that it was reversed, and we're back into this situation of these research labs pulling this bullshit of trying to do the gain of function to increase the potency, to jump species, and to create illness and chaos around the world.
It's disgusting. It makes me so mad, dude. And I was thinking about this, and no bullshit. It's why I got pissed off and I had to take my hoodie off, because it gets me.
You got a little hot under the collar. I get it.
It literally got me hot under the collar, and because it pisses me off so bad. And there is no good, sane reason to do this. And whoever is behind it, at the top or behind the shadows or somewhere, something, they need to
remember,
be
a lot of this was run by Fauci. I mean, you're talking about the mad scientist, and that's a shirt that we have on our store at the rudebarn.com.etsy.com. therudebarn.etsy.com. We have a shirt called The Mad Scientist with Anthony Fauci, is the Mad Magazine guy, Alfred E. Newman. And he is the guy, exactly the guy you're talking about. This is the guy that funded the research and all these NIH labs and everything else that you're talking about for the gain of function to do this shit. That exactly what you said, dude. He and then his ilk, those around him who are complicit with his orders, they all are and they're all guilty, and they all should be imprisoned for this. This is madness. Let's listen a little bit more of this. Yeah.
Whistle on them, you wouldn't believe. Paul Offit, who's one of the big apologists for vaccines, was one of the people who was so alarmed by what this guy Kawaoka was doing that even he blew the whistle on him. Anthony Fauci found a way around this largely by outsourcing stuff to China for the coronavirus work and to some extent just ignoring Obama's ban. But that's how bad these gain-of-function people are. Now you've got these leaked, lab-manipulated viruses that are out there. And fortunately, what we're seeing in the population is not as bad as they're advertising. Birds that are getting sick, occasional cows that are getting the virus as well, although the cows don't get very sick. I'm not aware of any. There may be some, but I'm not aware of any cow deaths. And 67 human beings in North America in the last couple of years have gotten this. And for the overwhelming majority of them, it's been conjunctivitis. It's been pink eye. There was one report of a person who died in Louisiana with the bird flu. They would not go so far as to say that the person died of the bird flu, although some of the media outlets claimed that, but that has not been stated. They are encouraging the farmers to do willy-nilly PCR testing on their flocks. If they test positive...
Okay, you remember PCR testing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was talking to T about that earlier. People need to realize PCR testing isn't really a way of testing if somebody actually has something that's going to harm them. A PCR test is something where they run a number of cycles, and it's like I'm not an expert on this, but from what I remember, it's like a Richter scale on an earthquake. Like a 5.1 was it 10 times more? It's an exponential factor more than a 5.0 quake. So if you go from a 5 to a 5.1 quake, it's 10 times or 100 times or something like that more, much stronger. 5.2 is 20 times or 200 times, whatever it was. Anyway, it's an exponential growth. The same thing with the cycles. The PCR test, depending on the number of cycles, and they were running like 30 cycles or something like that to detect COVID in people when they were testing for COVID using the PCR test. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and it's a chain reaction test, is a good way to explain it.
Yeah, and they're getting minute measurements of COVID, and COVID is a coronavirus. We all have coronaviruses constantly in our bodies, but it would detect this. It would be something that would have no effect on your body whatsoever, but you just tested positive for coronavirus.
Exactly.
Now you have COVID. That's the type of thing he's talking about here. And the PCR test is not meant to do this to diagnose. It's merely
it's not meant.
Is there a trace of it in? Yeah, it's stuff like that.
Right.
So, let's listen a little more what he has to say, and then we'll wrap this up.
Positive. What they're doing is mass slaughtering the entire flock if so much as one bird tests positive for the illness.
A PCR test, which has a lot of false positives, they have one positive, they will kill the entire flock. Some of these farms have millions of chickens, correct?
Correct. So they can kill hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of birds at once because of one or two positive PCR tests. That's why, and this is important for listeners to know, that's why we have a shortage. The shortage is not because the birds are dying of the bird flu. The shortage is because they're being mass slaughtered if there's even one or two or a small number of positive tests.
Have you heard anything about this happening in smaller backyard farms, people letting chickens in their backyards? Is that occurring in that environment at all, or is it just mainly the industrial size chicken farms?
It's an excellent question. I don't have a definitive answer, but what I would say is that supposedly this individual that got extremely sick in Louisiana caught it from their backyard chicken farm. However, the what's causing the price of eggs to go up is this ridiculous policy of slaughtering whole flocks when you have one or a few positive tests. And of course, to show you how dishonest the whole process is, they call it culling. Well, you can look up the definition of culling in the dictionary. It has nothing to do with mass slaughter. Mass slaughter is the opposite of culling. That's how dishonest this process is.
Anyway, he goes on, and I'll put the link to this whole video in there because it's about a little over halfway done. But it's just like we were talking about, and the reason these birds are dying in the mass numbers ain't because of natural occurring avian bird flu, H5N1, whatever it's called. It's because we're killing them because of antiquated policies that are just caveman era type policies. We guys won, we kill them all.
And that's what we said from the beginning, and that's what Secretary Rawlings even said. The culling of these birds, and And it's like exactly. It's antiquated thought process. It's using testing that's not meant to diagnose.
Exactly.
And it's just creating chaos to create chaos.
Yeah.
I mean, not only the manipulation of the virus, but also this culling. It's ridiculous. And he said right there,
policies, yeah,
just confirmed it, that's why the prices are going up. These birds aren't dying of this flu. Yeah. It's the mass flocks that are being slaughtered because of this culling,
that we're doing, that humans are doing.
Yeah, humans are doing. Yeah,
it's absolute evil. It's absolute bullshit. And this is why we're gonna do a podcast about the uselessness of the FDA and the USDA. Everybody thinks, oh well, it's not FDA approved. What the hell does that even mean anymore? I mean, really, right? What the hell does that mean? Because I don't give a shit if it's FDA approved. All that means is that somebody's paid somebody to do a test on it to make sure that it's ready to go. Just like with the COVID vaccine, Moderna and Pfizer especially would pay the FDA to do the research and the testing so that they can approve their product. If you don't know that's what happened, just go do some research. We'll probably do a video on that as well because that's fascinating. And the shit that they were pulling, everybody knows the FDA and Pfizer and these other big pharma companies, people would leave FDA and go be the board member or CEO or CFO or whatever of Pfizer, and then vice versa. And you wonder why there's some inbreeding and people, working back and forth, not getting the true thing. It's like, paying you under the table. Hey, why don't you test our product and make sure it's FDA approved?
It is.
Oh, that's so crazy. Yeah. You mean it wasn't? Oh, well, it's our third-party lab. We did that they said they did. We'll make sure. Let's test that again with our other approved research facility and see if it passes there, because I'm sure they didn't do the proper job at that particular one. I mean, that's how this shit went. It's just nuts. So the price of eggs is directly related to our antiquated, horrific policies of mass slaughtering, because one chicken in this case, or a couple, test positive from a PCR test that is not really meant to even show anything other than maybe a trace element of this, which doesn't even mean that they have an illness, that it just happens to be in their system and it's not going to do anything anyway because it's such a minute amount. It's just crazy. And if we don't push back on this and say, you know what, we've got to stop this shit. And these scientists who are doing these research studies and the gain of function studies and all these things really need to be out of a job and probably in an orange jumpsuit down in Gitmo, as far as
they need to be prosecuted. That is evil shit, just for evil sake.
Yep. Could this be prevented? Oh, hell yeah. Is this being manipulated on purpose? Hell yeah. Yeah. Everything else is yes. All the read the Chiron below. Everything in there is preventable. Yeah. Was it deliberate? Why? That's still the question we want to know. Why? Why are they trying to do this? Control us? Who's trying to control us? And why are they trying to control us? I mean, goes on. So, but anyway, we appreciate you guys stopping by. Check out our store. Like I said, the rudebarn.com, Etsy.com. And we've got a lot of stuff on there. I'll, and when I edit this together, I'll put up some videos of it and links, and you'll see everything that's in there. We also want to thank our good friends at the Bearded Viking.
BeardedViking.com. Go ahead and pick up your bottles today. There's a peach finder up right at the top. Click on it and you can see where to get our mead near you, or you can get it shipped to you if you don't live in Utah, New Jersey, Vermont, like 5 states. But all the other states, you can get it shipped straight to your door, or you can pick it up in your local grocery store.
Maybe a short drive over the border.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll pick up your mead.
I'll soon be in Wyoming, Texas, and Florida as well. So, so those are good things. So watch out. Keep an eye out for the Bearded Viking. Yep. Check us on the socials. It's awesome.
And we want to thank Vikings, Outlaws, and Cowboys, the VOC, Those guys are over on Rumble. You're part of that show as well, and they do a lot of good mental health stuff for men and veterans and even women. Kind of help out, have a voice, kind of speak what they want and say what they want and talk about them, help them off the ledge sometimes. Hopefully not too many times, but there's some issues, right?
Women play an important role in men's mental health.
Yep.
I will say that out loud, and it is definitive. And especially, if it's your wife or your girlfriend or a woman that's close to you, you know what I mean? They can really help you or hurt you in different ways. And I think it's wise for women to recognize that they play a role, and hopefully a positive role. You know what I mean? So
and understand the issues and how we can help. Yeah.
And how men think, you know what I mean? Because we men and women think drastically different.
Whoa. Whoa, what? I thought we were all the same. I thought it didn't matter. Yeah. Anyway, yes, check that out as well. That's Vikings, Outlaws, and Cowboys. What's the actual podcast name?
That's it. It's Vikings, Outlaws, and Cowboys on Rumble. Yeah, Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard
Live, usually, right?
Live, always live, baby.
Nice. Yeah, and if you find out something that's different than what has been presented here, that is not what's happening, please let us know and provide links and make sure you can back it up so that we can say, hey, we've had one of our viewers come up with something here. We've checked it out. Oh my God, he's right. They're not all happening this way, or this is happening. Please let us know in the comments. That'd be great. So subscribe, share everything we can do to kind of get this out to your friends and family and other people who might like what we're doing. We hope we present it in an entertaining way so that you're not sitting there like snoozing or changing the video to another video because you're so bored off your gourd. And get this out there so everybody can have fun. And like we said, this is our opinions on these things, but we try to back it up with things that we're finding. And if we can't for sure say this is fact per se, at least we can say, hey, here's one side of the argument. Oh, here's another side of the argument. Where is the truth? Lies somewhere in the middle usually. Yep. But we try to back it up with what we're saying and say, you know what, this is happening. There's too many people who are saying this is happening or this is what's going on or whatever. So anyway, we appreciate you joining, everybody, and check us out for the next podcasts. And we appreciate you stopping by. Have a good one.
Question everything, gang.
Question everything.